Most people lose money on their home purchase before they even write an offer. It's not on the price, it's on the process. And in Colorado especially, there are timing traps, contract quirks, and hidden costs that can cost you 5 figures if you walk in blind. I've watched buyers lose homes they should have won because their pre-approval wasn't ready. I've watched buyers move into a metro district with no idea what they signed up for until a tax bill showed up double what they budgeted. So this is the walkthrough I give every client on day one. Make sure to stick around. I'm gonna tell you about one of the craziest closing day situations I've ever been a part of, where a buyer tried to walk away and it ended up costing them $25,000. Hey there, I'm Jason Dalbey, team lead with the Denver Group. We're a high-performing team here in the Denver Metro. If you have any questions, let us know. We're happy to talk. So the buyers who end up scrambling, they're making rushed offers, they're losing out on a house they actually wanted. It almost always traces back to its first step. And here's what that actually looks like. You find a house you love, you tour it, you're ready to write an offer, and while you're scrambling to get a pre-approval letter together, 2 or 3 other offers land on the seller's desk first, fully ready to go, and you lose out. Not because your offer wasn't competitive, it's because you weren't ready when it mattered. The mistake is shopping too early relative to your financing. People start touring homes before they actually know their number, and then either fall in love with something out of their range, or they end up scrambling on financing right when they're trying to compete for a house. So my advice is always better to be early and over ready than late and hasty. A real pre-approval, not just a quick online form that spits out a guess, gives you your actual budget, not a guess. If you're paying cash, this obviously looks a little different, but you should still verify your figures before you start shopping and not after. And one more thing, a lender will tell you the maximum you can qualify for. That's not the same as what you should actually spend. Your lender isn't your financial planner. They're working off loan guidelines, not your comfort level. And when that pre-approval number comes back, decide what payment you're actually comfortable living with every month, not just for what you're approved for. And you've probably heard buying a house got more complicated this year because of changes to agent paperwork. And here's what actually changed and what didn't. The day-to-day process of working with a buyer's agent hasn't really changed. What changed is that the money conversation now happens earlier and it's in writing. And here's the part that matters most. If seller paid buyer agency compensation isn't offered or can't be negotiated into the deal, the buyer can be on the hook for their agent's commission directly. And in Denver right now, seller paid comp is still fairly common, but it's not guaranteed and it should never be a surprise. This is genuinely on your agent to walk you through clearly before you ever sign a buyer agency agreement. I'll be honest, a lot of agents still gloss over it. If yours doesn't bring it up, you need to ask directly who's paying you and what happens if the seller doesn't offer compensation. If it's not offered up front, it can often be negotiated into the offer. How hard you push on that depends on how competitive the situation is though. All right, so your pre-approval's done and you've got the great agent. Now comes the part everybody wants to skip straight to, actually looking at houses. But going into this stage without a plan is exactly where people get themselves into trouble. Zillow, Redfin are useful, but they're pulling from the MLS with a lag. Your agent has direct MLS access, so ask them to set you up on automated alerts filtered to exactly what you're looking for instead of doom scrolling an app on your own. And before you tour a single home, sit down and make a needs and wants list separately. Needs are non-negotiable. Bedroom count, yard for the dog, proximity to work. Wants are flexible. So if you're buying with a partner, do this together. It's a lot easier on paper than standing in a kitchen you both have feelings about. And here's the trap. Watch buyers fall into this constantly. They walk into a house, get emotionally attached in about 4 minutes, and suddenly their list doesn't matter anymore. I always tell clients, until you're under contract, it's just a house. Stay objective. All right, so once you find the house, you're ready to make an offer. And here's something most guides skip entirely. In Colorado, an offer isn't just a price. It's a package of several different levers, and which ones you pull depends on the property, the seller, and how much competition you're up against. Price is, of course, the obvious one, but you're also working with your earnest money amount, your inspection objection deadline, how you handle an appraisal gap if the home appraises below your offer, and your proposed closing date. date. The highest offer doesn't always win. The cleanest, most certain offer often does. On earnest money specifically, it freaks people out more than almost anything else in the process. And in Denver right now, it typically runs 1 to 2% of the purchase price. And here's the reframe. This contract is buyer friendly. As long as you're acting in good faith and operating within your contract dates, your earnest money is protected. The part people misunderstand is that it's not about changing your mind, it's about deadlines. If you pass a deadline without acting and that specific contingency comes off the table, you can still terminate for that reason, but your earnest money is no longer refundable on that basis. Dates can be moved, but only if both sides agree. In my experience, I've genuinely never had a buyer lose earnest money except when they simply decided the deal wasn't going to work and they walked away right at the finish line outside their protected window. All right, let me tell you about one of the craziest closing situations I've been part of. I was representing the seller. We had a buyer under contract. And on the actual day of closing, that buyer tried to retrade. So they essentially tried to renegotiate the price down to the last minute. My seller said no, the buyer walked. My seller kept the earnest money, put the house back on the market, and ended up selling it for $50,000 more than the original contract, and still got to keep the $25,000 earnest money deposit from the first deal. Needless to say, the seller was still pretty happy. So that's the risk on the other side of this. Earnest money isn't a scare tactic. It's a good faith deposit with real teeth in both directions. All right, a lot of first-time buyers focus on exactly the wrong things during inspection. And here's what actually matters. The inspection period usually falls within the first 2 weeks of going under contract. We typically recommend 3 things: a general inspection, which covers the main house, a sewer scope, and a radon test. You can budget somewhere between $500 and $1,000 for the general inspection, and another $150 and $250 for the sewer scope, and another $150 to $200 for the sewer scope. So none of this is refundable though. If you walk away, that's pretty much a sunk cost. That sewer scope matters more than most people think though, especially in Denver's older neighborhoods. We can have clay pipes and mixed materials. A collapsed line can turn into a 5-figure repair very quickly. And if any of those 3 inspections flag something, that's when we bring in a specialist. Typically your inspector is a generalist, not a specialist. Their job is to flag red flags, not give you a final verdict on every system in the house. What actually really matters is health and safety in major systems: mechanical, sewer, roof, foundation, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. Minor things should be expected in any home, and you're not buying a perfect house. You're buying a house with no deal breakers. I see this play out constantly. Negotiations get exhausting, and by the end, people are tired and start fighting over minor squabbles that can kill an otherwise good deal. I think this is exactly where having someone experienced in your corner, keeping the focus on the big picture, can help push a deal forward instead of blowing it up. When something major does get flagged, a credit is usually the easiest path. That's a lump sum instead of the actual work. You get to shop around for your own quote, and the seller isn't liable for whether the work gets done right. Though on certain issues like a roof or aluminum wiring, insurance or financing requirements can force the conversation in a different direction. Colorado has a handful of quirks that can catch buyers off guard, especially if you're moving here from out of state. First, water and mineral rights. For most residential buyers, these are already severed from the deed, so it's usually a non-issue. Where it does matter is well water or a property where water rights were specifically purchased, and that's when it's worth digging in. Second, transfer fees, especially in newer master plan communities. I worked in a subdivision in Littleton where the transfer fee was almost $4,000. That's real money that can catch a buyer off guard if nobody flags it before the offer. That connects to metro districts more broadly, special taxing districts that fund infrastructure in newer communities, adding a separate mill levy on top of your county property taxes. 2 houses priced the same in 2 different neighborhoods can end up with very different real monthly payments. So always ask what district a property sits in. Third, property taxes are paid in arrears. The seller pays their prorated share from January 1st up to closing, and the buyer pays the full amount at year's end. If you don't know that going in, the closing numbers can look confusing. And if you're buying new construction or a master planned community, make sure to ask about the Metro District mill levy and transfer fees before writing an offer. You've probably seen movies where the buyer and seller sit at the same table and sign together. That's not really how it works anymore. COVID killed that. Closing is run by the title company, and these days it's almost always separate closings for buyers and sellers. So a few days before closing, you'll get a closing disclosure, the final version of the numbers your lender estimated at pre-approval. You compare it against what you were originally quoted and ask your lender about anything that looks different. Right before closing, we do a final walkthrough. It's not a second inspection. It's just confirming the house in the condition it's supposed to be, and anything the seller agreed to fix actually got fixed. Here's the part that most people don't realize. The deal isn't done when you sign, it's done when it's funded. So when the money is actually in place and distributed. Signing is certainly a step, but funding is the finish line. That's the real timeline. It typically takes 30 days to accomplish. If you want the exact roadmap, if you want to talk through these steps in a little bit more detail, please reach out. Our team, the Denver Group, is here to help. You can go visit our website, denvergroupre.com. If you have questions about your own situation, make sure to drop them in the comments. I read all of them. I'm Jason, team lead with the Denver Group. If you're thinking about buying or selling in Colorado, we can help. Thanks for watching.